Good morning. Good morning. I see the room's filling up. I'd like to thank Isabella and Fabrizio for the introduction to my topic. I'd like to thank Fabrizio for involving me in the project. So I worked with the group involved with the validation of the questionnaire. I'm here to present a correlation between the reading performance of presbyopes and the near vision satisfaction measured using two different instruments, Rudner's reading tables developed and validated in Italy a number of years ago, and the satisfaction measured using the questionnaire described by Raffaella and Fabrizio. Let me briefly present these reading tables. Maybe not all of you remember what these reading tables are. They can be used not to measure visual acuity as the patient's ability to read by measuring usual reading speed, the font size below which reading becomes challenging, and the smallest reading font that can be afforded by the patient. So we can see these reading charts. Each sentence is a chart and can be compared to the other ones in terms of linguistic and structural terms, but the font size changes. The patient starts reading at their usual speed. Well, as the font gets smaller and smaller, the patient starts having difficulty and therefore slows down. That's the critical print size. So as the size gets smaller and smaller, the patient will start making errors and reading will gradually become impossible. This is the reading visual acuity, which is not the regular visual acuity because we're not reading letters but sentences. All these data plotted on a graph. And you can see here the speed is constant, and then there's a slowing down and a decline. So that's optimal reading speed, critical print size, and the reading visual acuity. The two instruments were applied to two samples coming from the study group presented by Fabrizio. So the emerging presbyopes, people of about 42, not using near correction, and then a group of patients that had used monovision correction and satisfied with it, that have used it for the last 6 months. So we wanted to have some kind of variability, some reading difficulties. We excluded people that used IOLs, monofocal IOLs, people that would have never been able to read our charts, and patients using progressive or monofocal spectacles, because, of course, these people, if well corrected, can obtain results that are comparable to those of non-presbyopes. So let's look at our results. Optimal reading speed of these presbyopes or emerging presbyopes was 186 words per minute. The speed was maintained for a number of sentences up to this sentence, which is 0.32 logma 510 at 50 centimeters. So that's the first challenge, the slowdown point. As they moved on, when a reading acuity was reached, that is indicated here, people were no longer able to go on reading. Let's give a meaning to these numbers, because we are thinking of visual acuity in terms of 10 from distance, but that doesn't mean anything when talking about near vision. So let's look at a group of young people, a group of students of 20 to 25. They read at an optimal reading speed, which is more or less the same as the previous group. So the reading speed does not depend, is not affected by aging. As a matter of fact, the critical print size and reading acuity are affected. So being able to read small font. The groups of emerging presbyopes and monovision, the critical print size is down to 810 at the same distance, and the you can see it was 510 in presbyopes. In students, it was 810. So about 2 lines were lost, and the reading acuity was 1210. So it might have been like this in presbyopes some years earlier. So there's a loss of 2 lines. What's the value of this visual acuity? What are we talking about? This is a book. The book has a font size that at 40 centimeters means a visual acuity of 3 lines. This is the WhatsApp screenshot of my iPhone. In this case, we have font size corresponding to 510 at 40 centimeters. But you may say, well, the font should be kept closer. But of course, the presbyopes don't use it that close. They keep it at 40 centimeters. You can see different reading performance. Younger people in blue and presbyopes, corrected and emerging presbyopes. There's no difference in speed, but we have a statistically significant difference in terms of the critical print size and the reading acuity. What kind of an impact does it have on quality of life? So let's give a questionnaire and see what happens. You can see the questions described by Fabrizio and Isabella. What's your level of difficulty reading, using a computer, your hobbies, looking at photos, writing, reading books, reading letters. When we do something from near, we do different things with different levels of difficulty. Reading speed, there's no correlation between performance and satisfaction. In fact, reading speed depends on something else. The critical print size is correlated with the degree of personal satisfaction. So the larger the font size a person is able to see, the more the person is dissatisfied with their near vision. If you can see small font, you're satisfied. If you can only see larger font, you're less satisfied. And that, of course, can be clearly seen in reading acuity. Let's see what happens in the two groups. Emerging presbyopes and corrected presbyopes. So people that don't use correction with the aging process, and so with the they have an increased dissatisfaction. If you have a near point of about 30 centimeters. So if you're really merging presbyopes below 45, you're more satisfied. If you have further near points, of course, the near point is closely correlated with age. I just indicated age has dissatisfaction levels that are higher. So you can see there's a correlation between dissatisfaction and age. Then correction is started. If correction is adequate and the person satisfied, with aging, the dissatisfaction level remains stable. There's no correlation anymore between aging and age-related dissatisfaction in our modern Western society, where anyone can actually have access to adequate correction. So if you're 80, 75, that's not that person's not necessarily going to be more dissatisfied than a 50-year-old person. So the dissatisfaction level has the same trend as reading acuity. In fact, in uncorrected people, there's a close correlation between aging and reading difficulty. In fact, at some point, a person decides to start using near glasses or contact lenses. When correction's adequate, with the passing of time, with the person's aging, reading performance remains stable. In conclusion, we can say that the reading ability assessment is a sensitive test and helps evaluate correction, degree of independence and satisfaction with respect to the near vision daily activities. So, in conclusion, the NAVC questionnaire translated into Italian is a reliable instrument, so construction is valid, and the questionnaire can provide an assessment of satisfaction level. Behaviors can be compared between groups, and the presbyopia evolution can be monitored. Thank you very much for your attention.